Hey Reddit, this isn't the kind of thing I usually do, but lately I've found that writing things out helps me process. So, I figured I'd start at the beginning, not with the drama, not with the fallout, just with how it all started. Back when it was just the two of us and everything felt exactly how it was supposed to. My name's Ethan, I'm 35, and my wife, Vanessa, is 33. We've been married for about 6 years now, together for nearly 9. We live just outside Charlotte in a quiet neighborhood, one of those places with weekend yard sales and neighbors who wave from their driveways. Our life isn't flashy, but it's solid, comfortable. Vanessa and I met at a friend's barbecue back in 2014. It was one of those late summer weekends where the weather couldn't make up its mind, half sunshine, half thunder rumbling somewhere in the distance. I didn't even want to go, honestly. I just finished a long week of HVAC installs and wanted nothing more than to sit on the couch and do nothing. But my buddy Rob talked me into it, and I'm glad he did. Vanessa showed up about an hour after I got there. I remember it clearly because she had this laugh that carried over the music, not loud in a bad way, just noticeable, like she didn't care who heard her. We talked over paper plates of ribs and baked beans, and by the end of the night, we were sitting on the back porch, just the two of us, talking about everything from terrible bosses to our weirdest high school memories. She was sharp, funny, and confident, the kind of person who didn't need to dominate a room to stand out in it. I liked her immediately. We started dating soon after. Nothing dramatic, just long dinners, movie nights, weekend trips when we could swing it. She worked in real estate and was constantly on the move, juggling showings and clients and paperwork. I was still working under someone else at the time, doing mostly residential heating and cooling jobs. We both had hectic schedules, but we made time. It felt easy, like we didn't have to force anything. 2 years in, we moved into a townhouse together. That's when things really started to settle. She brought her love of plants and candles into the space, and I handled anything that needed fixing. We split chores without needing to talk about it. We had our own corners of the world, but always ended the day on the same couch, watching something dumb and sharing snacks. Our wedding came a year later. It was simple backyard ceremony at her parents' house, string lights and folding chairs, close friends and family. She looked incredible. I remember standing there, holding her hands, thinking, this is it. This is the life. Now we're in a house we bought 3 years ago, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a backyard that's just big enough to grill on weekends and let the dog run wild. I started my own HVAC business a while back, and Vanessa's still killing it in real estate. She's built a strong client base, and her schedule is packed, but she thrives in that chaos. We both do our own thing during the day, then come together at night, unwind, and make time for each other. It's not glamorous, but it's real. Our life is built on routines, small gestures, shared calendars, and late-night jokes. We know each other's rhythms. We know when to give space and when to show up. And if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said, without a doubt, that we were solid. But I'm not going there yet. This part, this beginning, is where it all made sense. Most mornings in our house start the same way. I'm up first, always have been. I like the quiet that comes with it, the stillness before the world kicks into gear. I usually let the dog out, put on a pot of coffee, and scroll through emails while the kitchen fills with that first hit of warmth and light. Vanessa comes down a bit later, hair pulled back, half awake, wrapped in one of the oversized cardigans she insists on wearing year-round, even when it's 80 degrees out. We'll sit at the table together, not saying much, just kind of easing into the day. She's usually checking her phone for new listings or updates from clients. I'll go over the day's jobs, usually a couple of residential appointments, maybe a quote to send, parts to pick up. It's our rhythm. Simple, predictable, comfortable. We don't see each other much during the workday. She's always driving around town, staging homes or hosting showings. I'm bouncing between sites, managing crews, doing hands-on installs. But we check in, a text here and there, a quick call if something funny happens or if dinner plans need adjusting. She always texts when she's on her way home, like clockwork. Leaving now. Anything we need. It's one of those small habits that became part of our language over time. Evenings are when we reconnect. Dinner is usually a joint effort. She loves trying new recipes, and I handle the grill or anything that requires more than 3 ingredients. We put music on, pour a drink, and catch each other up. She likes to vent about the weird stuff clients do, like the woman who tried to hide her cat during an open house by locking it in the pantry. I tell her about the couple who thought their AC was broken but had just tripped the breaker and panicked. After dinner, we wind down. Some nights we'll watch a show, mostly crime dramas or competition cooking shows, depending on who picks. Other nights we'll both be on our laptops, half working, half talking. She's always following up on something: leads, offers, marketing campaigns. She's driven in a way that never slows down. I admire that about her. She doesn't need anyone to push her. She's always been self-propelled. Weekends are for catching up. Errands in the morning, maybe lunch out, something low-key in the afternoon. If she doesn't have an open house, we'll walk the dog through the trails behind the neighborhood or work on little projects around the house. Vanessa has this list of upgrades she's always refining, future maybe projects, she calls them. Right now, she's obsessed with the idea of turning the guest room into a reading lounge with a built-in bookshelf. I keep saying I'll draw up the plans. She keeps bringing home paint swatches. We host friends now, and then casual dinners, game nights, small things. Vanessa's great at making people feel welcome. She's got this way of pulling a room together, asking just the right questions, keeping the energy light. I usually hang back, play bartender, man the grill. We balance each other well that way. On the surface, and honestly, even under it, our life works. We have our ups and downs like anyone, but nothing that ever felt unsteady. People see us and see a team. And for a long time, I did too. But that's the thing about routines. You follow them for so long, you stop noticing what's missing. If you'd asked me 6 months ago how things were going, I would have said what most people in long-term relationships say: we're good. And I would have meant it. Not in a scripted, brush-it-off kind of way, but in the grounded, quiet confidence that comes when two people know each other's rhythms so well they don't have to think about them anymore. Life with Vanessa had become second nature. We didn't argue much. When we did, it was never explosive. More like low, careful negotiations about timing, priorities, where to put the new rug she brought home without asking. She was headstrong, always had been, but she was also fair. She'd push for what she wanted, but she listened, too. We knew how to read each other's tone before it turned into anything serious. A raised eyebrow from her. A long pause from me. We always found the middle ground. She had her quirks, sure. She hated when I left cabinet doors open, and she swore I loaded the dishwasher with reckless abandon. I teased her about her obsession with color-coordinated throw pillows and how she somehow always managed to leave exactly one bobby pin in the shower. But those things were part of it. Part of us. The everyday details that build a life without you realizing it. And then there were the things she was amazing at. Birthdays? She never missed one. Not just mine, but friends, family, coworkers. She always had a card, a little gift, a plan. She remembered things I forgot. The name of the waiter from our anniversary dinner last year, the song that played during our first dance, the exact way I take my coffee when I'm not speaking because I've had a long day. There was comfort in being with her. Not excitement, not butterflies, that part of a relationship evolves. But real comfort. I'd get home from a long job, drop my keys on the counter, and hear her voice from upstairs, calling, "Did you eat?" Or, "Come look at this flooring option I found." She made the house feel full. I think that's why I never questioned anything. There were no obvious red flags. No late-night disappearances. No sudden changes in routine. She worked hard, always had, and she had her own social life: book club once a month, occasional happy hours with her real estate group, the occasional weekend lunch with her old college friends. I never kept tabs. I never felt the need to. Trust was the baseline. She had hers, I had mine. And to be honest, I wore that as a point of pride. I wasn't the jealous type. We weren't the couple who needed to share passwords or check each other's locations. We built something sturdy, at least. That's what it looked like. From the outside, and even from the inside, everything made sense. Which is why what came next hit so hard. But not yet. Back then, I still believed in us. Every night when we locked the doors, turned out the lights, and fell asleep next to each other, I believed I had everything I needed. The shift was small at first, barely noticeable. One of those things you only see in hindsight, like a shadow in the corner of a photo you didn't catch the first time around. But it was there, in the way Vanessa started moving through the house a little faster. In the way she became harder to reach during the day. In the way she stopped finishing her stories. It started with her phone, honestly. She's always been attached to it. Real estate is a nonstop game, and I'm used to her juggling messages from clients at all hours. But lately, she started taking calls in the other room. Not just when it was loud or chaotic. Even when the house was quiet. I'd hear her voice trail off into the hallway or behind a closed door, and when she came back, it was like she dropped the thread of whatever we were doing before. She also became more polished. I don't know how else to put it. Vanessa's always cared about how she looks, not in a superficial way, but in a confident, put-together way. But now she was spending more time on herself in the mornings. Makeup for casual errands. Dresses I hadn't seen in months pulled out for quick lunches or evening showings. When I commented on it, she laughed and said, "What? I'm just tired of feeling like a mess." I didn't press. It wasn't out of character. But it was different. The biggest change was in the way she talked to me. Or maybe, the way she didn't. Our conversations got shorter. Less detail. Less warmth. She used to tell me about the weird stuff that happened during her day, the picky clients, the bad coffee, the funny text from her team. Lately, when I asked how her day went, the answer was almost always busy or fine. No color, no layers. Just the shape of a response with nothing inside it. One night, we were sitting on the couch watching a show we both usually enjoyed. She was scrolling through her phone, barely glancing at the screen. I made a joke, something dumb, not even memorable, and she didn't laugh. Just gave me this distracted, half nod and kept typing. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the TV and tried to convince myself I was imagining it. There wasn't one big moment. No missed calls or unfamiliar cologne or strange charges on the credit card. Just a slow erosion of the closeness we used to have. It felt like trying to hold on to something that was slowly dissolving, still technically there, but slipping through my fingers every time I reached for it. She told me she was stressed, that she had a lot going on, that I was imagining things when I asked if everything was okay. And maybe I was. Maybe I am. But that night, lying next to her in bed, I watched the light from her phone flash against the wall while she typed under the blanket. I didn't ask who it was, but I didn't sleep either. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that people go through stressful patches, and sometimes the weight of everything pulls you in different directions. That's what marriage is, right? You hold the line when things stretch thin. You give space. You wait for things to click back. But the thing was, nothing was clicking. Not really. Vanessa was still Vanessa. She still came home, still asked how my day was, still made dinner, or brought home takeout like always. But everything felt delayed. Like she was going through the motions, just a half step behind herself. Her words were still there, but the feeling behind them wasn't. I'd catch her looking past me during conversations, eyes flicking toward her phone or some invisible spot on the wall. And every time I'd lean in, say something funny, try to pull her back, she'd smile, distracted, and change the subject. She'd also started working late more often. And again, it made sense on paper. The market was picking up, and spring was always her busiest season. But I noticed the way she started volunteering for more evening showings. Weekend appointments that suddenly came out of nowhere. One night she came home almost 2 hours later than she said she would, blaming a last-minute walkthrough, and then casually brushing it off like I was being weird for asking about it. I wasn't accusatory. I just asked, "Everything go okay?" She replied, "Yeah, just ran long," and walked right past me like it never happened. I told myself not to overthink it. I've always trusted her. We built everything on that trust. She's always had freedom. I never needed to track her, never worried about her being out late. And I hated the idea of becoming someone who suddenly questioned what he never used to notice. But it was there now. This quiet, nagging tension in my chest every time she left the house without saying exactly where she was going. Every time she smiled at her phone and quickly locked the screen when I walked into the room. Every time I asked a simple question and got a vague answer. One night, I noticed she had changed her phone's lock screen. It used to be a photo of us on the trail behind our house from a hike we did last fall. Now it was a generic beach photo. One of those preloaded ones that doesn't mean anything. I asked her about it, and she just said, I needed a change, without even glancing up. I nodded and didn't push. But something in me didn't settle. She still touched me at night, kissed my shoulder, curled her leg over mine, held my hand in the dark. But the touch felt different. Not cold. Just careful. Like she was holding a version of me in place. Like she didn't want to be caught pulling away, even if she already had. I hadn't changed anything. I still got up early, still ran my business, still fixed the broken shelf she pointed out last week, still made her coffee when I beat her downstairs. But I felt like I was playing the role of someone she used to want, a stand-in for the version of our life that existed a few months ago. And even though I didn't know what was wrong, I could feel that something was. It's hard to explain how silence changes. At first, it's just background noise, the comfortable quiet of people who've known each other long enough to not need to fill every gap. But lately, the silence between me and Vanessa had started to feel like a language we weren't speaking anymore. It wasn't comfortable. It was sharp. A kind of silence that pressed in, like something had been said without being said. She hadn't done anything wrong. Not in any concrete way. That was the thing. She still came home. She still ate dinner with me. She still sat beside me on the couch. But she was somewhere else, mentally, emotionally. And I kept wondering if I was losing my mind, looking for signals in the way she picked at her food or how long it took her to respond to a text. One night, we were watching a movie, something she picked. I don't even remember the title. I looked over at her halfway through, and she was scrolling through her phone, barely paying attention. I made a comment, jokingly, something like, "Glad you're enjoying it," and she laughed, too quickly, and said, "Sorry, just checking something." I didn't say more. I couldn't, because even then, I didn't have a reason to feel the way I felt. Just a growing sense that whatever she was checking wasn't about the movie. And there were other small things. She changed her gym schedule, said she wanted to switch to mornings instead of evenings. That was fine. I supported it. But then some mornings she didn't go, or left late, or came back still dressed in the same clothes, saying, "I wasn't feeling it today." Once or twice, she said the class was canceled, but when I asked about rescheduling, she brushed it off. "I'll figure it out." She also started locking her phone more often. Again, nothing dramatic, just quick, habitual. I'd walk into the kitchen and hear it click off. The screen would go black and she'd look up at me with that smile, like nothing had happened. She still kissed me goodbye every morning. Still said, "Love you," before bed. Still played the part. But it started to feel like that, a part. The worst thing was, I still wanted to believe her. I wasn't ready to be suspicious. I wasn't the guy who accused without reason, who followed his wife around, who checked her phone. That wasn't me. But I was becoming someone else, someone who kept his guard half up even when she was laughing next to him, someone who noticed when she took a little longer to respond, someone who kept track of the time without meaning to. And maybe that was on me. Maybe I was seeing shadows where there weren't any. Or maybe she was just really good at keeping the lights dim enough for me not to notice what was right in front of me. All I knew for sure was this: something had changed between us. And the worst part wasn't that I didn't know why. It was that she didn't seem to notice it at all. I didn't decide to install the cameras all at once. It wasn't some dramatic turning point, no thunderbolt of suspicion or flash of rage. It happened slowly, the way you check the locks twice when something doesn't feel right. I just couldn't shake the weight in my chest anymore. The silence. The vagueness. The sense that Vanessa had started living a second life right next to me, when I was never meant to see. The idea came to me late one night. She was asleep beside me, breathing steady, one arm draped over her pillow instead of me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, not angry, not even sad, just hollow. My mind was stuck in that loop. Am I being paranoid, or am I being lied to? That next morning, I started researching hidden cameras. Not to catch her. Not even to prove anything. I just needed clarity. A way to stop wondering every time I left the house or stepped outside to walk the dog. A way to know, without asking, what was actually happening in the space I used to think of as mine. I installed one in the bedroom. Small. Motion activated. Tucked into the back corner of the bookshelf, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. I told myself it was just for a few days. Just long enough to settle the noise in my head. I didn't feel proud of it. Honestly, I felt sick to my stomach the entire time I set it up. This wasn't me. I'd never been the kind of man who doubted his wife. Not for 1 second in our entire marriage. I trusted her. I wanted to keep trusting her. But trust isn't blind. And what I had now wasn't trust. It was silence and doubt. And I couldn't live in it anymore. That week, I went about my days like everything was normal. I still kissed her goodbye in the mornings. Still asked about her day. Still listened when she told me she had a late showing, or an early gym class, or a meeting that just popped up. I didn't push. I didn't hint. I just waited. Each night, I checked the footage. At first, there was nothing. Just Jasper napping on the floor. The shadows shifting as the afternoon sun moved through the windows. Vanessa getting dressed, folding laundry, taking calls. Nothing suspicious. Nothing unusual. But I kept watching. And something kept gnawing at me. Not what I saw, but what I didn't. Vanessa had started coming home earlier some nights. Earlier than she said she would. She'd text me, say she was still out, but the footage would show otherwise. She'd be home. Alone. But only for a while. And then, silence. The camera would cut off, either from inactivity or something else. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't want to leap into accusations with half a story, but I knew then that I couldn't let it go either. I had stepped across a line, the kind you can't walk back from, and I was already halfway down a road I never thought I'd be on. Still, some part of me hoped I was wrong. Hoped that what I'd find, in the end, would embarrass me, that I'd feel foolish, overly cautious, paranoid, because that would mean she was still the person I thought she was. But I wasn't that lucky. Not even close. It was a Thursday night when I found it. I'd come home late. Job site ran long. Client wouldn't stop talking. Vanessa wasn't there when I got back. She'd texted earlier to say she was getting drinks with an old coworker and might crash at her friend Kelly's place afterward if it ran late. I told her to have fun. She didn't respond. After feeding Jasper and cleaning up a little, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the closed door. My chest was tight again, that feeling I'd gotten used to over the last few weeks. The waiting, the wondering. I reached for the small hard drive I'd tucked away in my nightstand and opened the file for that afternoon. At first, it was like the others. The room bathed in natural light, soft shadows moving across the walls. Vanessa entering around 3:30. She looked calm, composed. Her keys jingled as she set them down. She was on the phone, pacing in front of the bed. She didn't look stressed. She was smiling. Then, 15 minutes later, the door opened again. He walked in like he'd been there before. Tall, athletic build, confident. His face was turned at just the right angle for me to recognize him. It was Ryan, her ex, the one she said she hadn't talked to in years. The one she called ancient history, back when we were first dating. The one I never liked but never asked about because I trusted her. I sat frozen. They didn't talk much. At least, not on camera. She kissed him right away. Not hesitant. Not guilty. Like she'd done it 100 times already. Like it was normal. They made their way to the bed, my bed, our bed, and everything after that felt like watching a version of my life being erased in real time. I couldn't hear anything. The camera didn't record sound. But it didn't matter. I saw everything. The way she looked at him. The way she held him. The familiarity in it. The comfort. There was no trace of hesitation in her face. No fear of getting caught. She wasn't worried. Because she didn't think I'd ever look. I stopped the video before it finished. My hands were shaking, but my face felt numb. Like something inside me had turned off. I sat there for what felt like an hour, the house silent around me, the weight of what I'd just seen settling in slow and heavy. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drunken one-off or a misunderstood hug. This was planned, repeated, familiar. It had been going on, and she brought him into our house, our room, into the space where we built something I thought was real. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, the footage still burned into the back of my mind, and thought, she chose this. Over me. Over us. Over everything we built. She didn't know I knew. But she would. Very soon. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in our bed, my bed, staring at the ceiling. Every second that played out on that footage etched into my head like some sick dream I couldn't blink away. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. It happened in my house, in my room, in the same sheets Vanessa and I had picked out together at that stupid department store after spending an hour arguing over thread counts. The cruelty of it wasn't just the act, it was the ease with which she did it. The confidence. The comfort. Like she had rehearsed it all in her head 100 times, right down to the way she didn't bother to clean up afterward. She hadn't just cheated. She'd settled in. By the time the sun came up, something in me had hardened. Not into rage, that came later. This was colder than that. This was clarity. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to sit her down and ask, why? I didn't want some half-hearted apology or excuse about feeling disconnected. I wanted to erase her. I wanted to make her feel the weight of the choices she thought I'd never find out about. That morning, I called in sick. Spent the entire day boxing up her things. Not just the obvious stuff, clothes, toiletries, the frame prints she hung in the hallway, but every last reminder of her presence in that house. The spare coffee mug she always used. Her stacks of real estate magazines. The extra set of heels she kept in the mudroom for emergencies. I packed them with care. Not out of respect, but because I wanted them gone without chaos. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to erase. But that wasn't the end of it. I remembered something Ryan's wife, Emily, had said to me years ago at a mutual friend's wedding, before we all drifted apart. Funny how people circle back when they think no one's watching. At the time, it had seemed like a throwaway comment. Now, it sounded prophetic. I reached out to her. Emily. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but when I explained carefully, honestly, what had happened, she didn't sound surprised. She sounded tired, hurt, and angry. She said, "Come over." And I did. I won't pretend what happened next was noble. It wasn't. It was calculated. Two people, betrayed by the same pair of liars, choosing to reclaim something they'd had taken from them. What happened between me and Emily wasn't romantic. It wasn't sweet. But it was mutual. Two people looking each other in the eye and saying, "We are not victims." The next morning, I didn't text Vanessa. I didn't wait for her to come crawling back with some excuse. I sent her one photo, me and Emily, sitting on her porch, coffee mugs in hand, her arm draped over my shoulder. I didn't caption it. I didn't need to. Then I waited. It took her an hour to show up. I heard her key in the lock, followed by the sharp click of it refusing to turn. I had changed the locks the night before. I watched through the upstairs window as she stood on the porch, staring at her phone, trying to call me. I didn't answer. When she started knocking, I opened the window. Her voice was shaking. "Ethan, what's going on? Why are my things out here?" I didn't yell. I didn't break. I just looked down at her and said, "You brought him into my bed. I brought her into yours. We're even now." She froze. And before she could reply, I added, "Your stuff is in the driveway. Take it. Don't come back." Then I closed the window. And I walked away. The rest of the day was quiet. She called over and over. Sent texts. Some angry. Some pleading. None of them mattered. I blocked her. She tried from other numbers. I blocked those too. I didn't need closure. I had the truth, and I had the final word. And when I walked through the house that night, alone, I didn't feel hollow. I felt clean. The first morning I woke up alone, truly alone, the house felt different. Not empty, cleared. The kind of quiet you notice in a forest after a storm. There were no bags at the door, no high heels left by the stairs, no perfume faint in the hallway. Just light through the windows, Jasper's slow breath by my side, and the sound of coffee percolating in a kitchen that didn't feel like a war zone anymore. I took that day for myself. No calls. No texts. No work. I walked the dog through the trails behind the neighborhood, same path Vanessa and I used to take on lazy weekends. This time, I didn't talk. I just listened, birds, wind, the crunch of gravel beneath my boots. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was rushing to get somewhere. I just was. There wasn't a grand moving on moment. No big social media post. No impulsive haircut or spontaneous trip to Europe. That's not how real life works. You don't flip a switch after being betrayed by the person you trusted most. You just start showing up for yourself again, one small decision at a time. I deep cleaned the house. Not to erase her, but to reclaim the space. I repainted the bedroom, tossed the sheets, got rid of the decorative pillows I always hated but never said anything about. I took back the things I had let slide, the quiet preferences, the small corners of myself I'd given up in the name of compromise. Work picked up again. I threw myself into the business, focused on getting back to the roots of why I started it, not just for income, but for independence. I stayed busy, not to distract myself, but because I needed structure, purpose. Friends reached out. Some were awkward about it, unsure how to talk around the wreckage. Others didn't ask questions, just showed up with a six-pack or a round of golf. I appreciated both. I let myself be around people again, even when I didn't feel like it. And slowly, I started to enjoy things again. Movies, music. Even quiet evenings alone didn't sting the way they did in those first few days. And then there was Lila. We met through work, believe it or not. Her mom needed an HVAC install for a property she was flipping. I came in to walk the place, and Lila was there, clipboard in hand, half frustrated with her contractor, already apologizing for the chaos. She was calm but quick-witted, grounded in that way that makes you pay attention. We didn't flirt. We didn't exchange numbers. But the conversation stuck with me. She reached out a week later, not for work, but just to thank me for how I handled the job. One message led to another. Then a coffee. Then a walk. No expectations. No pressure. She asked good questions. She didn't talk over me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to pretend to be anything more or less than who I was. We're not rushing it. I'm not trying to fill a hole. But there's something good there, honest, unhurried, unbroken. And more importantly, I know now that I'm good. I made it through. Not unchanged. You don't walk through something like that without scars. But stronger, wiser, and more awake than I've been in years. The version of myself that bent to keep a broken relationship standing is gone. What's left is mine, and it's enough. Somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking about her every day. It didn't happen suddenly. There was no switch flipped, no magical moment where I declared myself healed. It just faded. The anger, the hurt, even the disbelief, it all dulled, the way any pain does when you stop poking at it. Vanessa is a name I say less now. When people ask what happened, I don't give them the long version anymore. I just say, it didn't work out, and that's enough. Not because the story doesn't matter, but because I no longer need to carry it in front of me like a shield. The weight is still there, tucked somewhere behind the ribs. But I've built around it. I don't regret installing that camera. I don't regret how I handled it afterward. Some people hear what I did, the quiet revenge, the sharp finality, and they ask if it was worth it, if it helped. And the truth is, yes, because I didn't act out of spite. I acted to end a lie, to stop pretending that what we had could be salvaged. There's a kind of peace that comes with seeing things clearly, even if what you see breaks your heart. Lila and I are still seeing each other. It's different this time. Slower. Kinder. There's no pretending. No guessing. We talk openly, even about the hard stuff. She knows what I've been through. She doesn't try to fix it or compete with it. She just shows up. And that, I've learned, is the rarest kind of love. The kind that doesn't try to overpower your past, just walks alongside it. But this story isn't about her. Or even about Vanessa. It's about me. About waking up in a life I thought I knew, realizing I didn't, and choosing not to stay asleep. There are things I'll never get back: time, trust, that old version of love I used to believe was unshakable. But there are things I've gained, too. Clarity, boundaries, a quieter kind of strength. The knowledge that I can lose something I thought I needed and still be okay. So to anyone who's been in that place, sitting in a room full of memories, wondering if the silence is a sign or just your imagination, listen to it. Trust yourself. You don't need proof to honor your instincts. But if you go looking, be ready for the truth. And if you find it, don't flinch. Stand up. Walk out. Let them wonder when you stopped waiting. Let them hear the lock click behind you. You owe no one your suffering. You owe yourself your freedom. That's what I found in the end. Not revenge. Not justice. Just freedom. And now that I have it, I'm not giving it up again.